to start at the beginning of the beginning because I think it gives people a sense of who I am and why I've done the kind of work that I do. I was born into a very Southern Baptist family to a single mother who, despite pressures from friends and family to do otherwise, graduated very heavily pregnant with me. And from there, our life turned from page to page, and eventually we ended up in Alaska. But no, I've never met Sarah Palin, and yes, we did have the internet. My husband and I immigrated to Nova Scotia in 2007, and we have three daughters who put us through our paces every day. And I've lived in Dartmouth longer than I've ever lived in any singular place. So for me, this is home. And for me and our girls, when people say Dartmouth, it really resonates with us. That's where my kids have grown up, and it's the place I identify with the most. So we lived here for about 14 years now, but when we first got here, I was very lonely. We moved to a new country. I wasn't working and I had two infant girls to take care of, so I decided to start my own little nonprofit. It was called PAIR, which stood for Providers of Adult Integration Resources. But the basic concept was bringing single mothers or mothers with small children together to gather at Victoria Hall down on Gottingen Street in downtown Halifax. And at that time, the hall was a home for elderly ladies. The idea was that I was feeling lonely. I wanted my kids to be around seniors in their community, and I wanted to give back. And also, those ladies would sometimes feel isolated, and I knew that just being around babies was a delight for them. So the hall accommodated us once a month, and we would go and read stories and giggle and laugh together and just make connections. And in a sense, I've never really fully let go of that concept of bringing people together with different problems and solutions for a mutual benefit. I've been working with Catholic nonprofits in fundraising communications for just about 10 years now, and I literally can't imagine doing anything else. I spent many years volunteering with Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, but when I started working full time, I just couldn't keep all of those plates spinning, and I had to let go of my volunteerism and my ministry work. That was really painful for me, more painful than I think I realized. So during COVID, I think I went through what most of us have gone through, which I call like the great discernment. You know, God, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Where am I called to be? For me, that's always a really risky business because when I enter into discernment, my gut instinct is usually to do the right thing. But too often I give myself a lot of time to talk myself out of it. Jen, it's too much work, or it's not enough money. And you start to think really pragmatically about things like bills and tuition and kitchen renos. And eventually you're not really doing what God's asking you to do anymore. You're doing what you think is practical. So when this position came up, I really felt that there was something drawing me to apply and to make this change, COVID or no COVID, that it was an opportunity for me that I had to jump on. St. Bernard said, all monasteries have a bell. When the bell called, it called you to the next task, not because you wanted to do that task, but because it was time for it. And time isn't your time, it's God's time. The monastic bell could stretch the heart by always taking you beyond your own agenda to God's agenda. When this position came up, it sounded like a position that was uniquely written for my background. My hope for myself was that this role would stretch my heart. The people you meet, especially when they're part of your parish and they're your friends and they're your community members, the bonds there are real. It's not just water cooler talk. The members of this congregation were there for me when I needed it most, even when I didn't know how to ask for help. So to be able to integrate what I do professionally with my family, my fellow parishioners, and my community is incredibly special. and I don't for one second take this role for granted. Position, the goal is not to bring about Jenn's hopes and dreams, but to connect people, to give voice to the stakeholders in our community so that we can really create a dream together. This has to be a collective effort. Many of the programs that we're currently supporting have been running for decades. Feeding Others of Dartmouth actually started as an initiative in the 60s, not by wealthy community members, but by single moms who were learning how to cook and then shared their meals with the larger community. The Dartmouth North Christian Food Bank has been operating for over a couple decades now as well, and they serve 40 to 80 people every week. So this is a really rare chance to be a part of supporting those initiatives and to bring that story forward. I want to be part of that rich tradition of community and giving and love and charity, and I want to share that story with as many people as possible. So I think my role here is really to do that, to bring people together, to get people excited about what's going on, and to bring that narrative to the next generation in our community. We live in an area where there are 438 homeless today, and 39 of those are families. That's simply not good enough. And it can make us feel hopeless, and hopelessness can be overwhelming. But tackling hopelessness is like tackling an elephant. And St. Vincent de Paul is working on the leg, and the Dartmouth North Food Bank is working on the belly, and we've got the Chaplaincy Society, they have an ear, and the House of Hope has another ear, and all of these groups together, united with Christ, we can be a source of hope. So in that sense, outreach is not about one group helping another group or one church helping another church. This is about the mobilization of Dartmouth for Dartmouth. The question, how can I help, is oftentimes the first indication that we're listening to the Holy Spirit, the helper who is with us and who is leading the way. Acts of charity and love themselves are how we accept the Spirit into our bodies, allowing the Spirit to conform us to Christ. They're not just responses to the command of the Holy Spirit. Our union with the Spirit is accepted in the embodied act itself. My hope is that as a parish and as individuals, we would take stock and take an inventory of our time, talent, and treasures. In doing so for myself, I can feel grateful for what's been given to me, and I can take what I need, and what's left is needed by others. We have a chance and opportunity here, and I fully believe that we're capable of being committed, compassionate, loving individuals who are engaged deeply in the world and our community, not in spite of our faith, but because of our faith. We have the potential to be the living, breathing embodiment of the love of Christ.